Lowe's results could be best characterized as better than feared, particularly in light of what we heard from Home Depot yesterday. They did fall short of consensus estimates on same-store sales, but I think the buy side was probably looking for something flat to lower, so a little bit better than they were looking for. Now, that being said, they did trim their full-year outlook. Now they're looking for full-year comp sales to be flat from flat to up 1%. So that would imply that 4Q is relatively flat. But similar to what we heard from Home Depot, they had about 100 basis point impact from hurricane activity that was not replicated this year. So again, if you were to back that out, it looks like the underlying trends in the business are pretty stable. That being said, they're still grappling with the same consumer uncertainty and the same weak housing market that their competitor is. So still challenges out there in the market.
Drew, I think I understand it correctly that Lowe's has a lower percentage of sales to professional contractors than does Home Depot. If so, are they trying to narrow the gap? Are they targeting that segment a little more?
Yeah, great question. So Lowe's is about 30% professional contractors, 70% DIY. Home Depot is about 50-50, maybe even a little bit higher on the pro front. What's interesting, and to your point on investment, is the pro space, especially in building products distribution, has really become a battleground among home improvement retailers. You had Home Depot recently do acquisitions for SRS and GMS, and then you have Lowe's, who recently acquired Foundation Building Materials. So it's certainly an area where they're making a concerted effort to grow. Now, Lowe's has historically focused on the small and medium-sized pro, and what this acquisition does is it gives them exposure to larger pros who do more complex projects. So they're able to, be the supplier of choice, across more building product categories and at a larger scale.
So basically directly competing with Home Depot in many ways. Is this going to become a duopoly, or are there still a lot of other places that professional contractors can go to?
Yeah, so the building products distribution space is still very highly fragmented. I wouldn't be surprised to see further consolidation within the industry, across different categories. Home Depot and Lowe's are certainly, two of the behemoths in the industry who have, the scale and financial flexibility to further consolidate the industry. But there's some other players as well, like QXO. So it is a fragmented industry, but I would expect, in the coming years, it's something that continues to get consolidated.
Drew, I'm probably like a lot of investors out there. I can't keep track of where all the tariffs are these days on all the different products, but I'm just guessing if I'm a Lowe's or a Home Depot, my plywood from Canada, that's probably being tariffed. A power tool from somewhere in Asia, that's probably subject to tariffs. How are these companies dealing with it? What have they been telling you guys?
Yeah, good question. So Lowe's gets about 60% of its products from the U.S. So their exposure internationally is maybe not as high as you would expect. China is probably around 15 to 20%. There hasn't been a whole lot of talk. I think we have seen their average ticket increase this quarter was up about 3%. And part of that is in response to tariff-related price increases. Lowe's told us that they were only modest increases. And, they'll take a portfolio approach to how they increase prices. They'll look at their product lineup and see where they have more elasticity. But I think the impact of cost will start to come in a little greater as we look into Q4 and early 2026. And, some of the areas that we're looking at, you mentioned plywood, so lumber tariffs from Canada. We also had the implementation of tariffs on cabinetry, both kitchen and bath, which could go up to 50% in January. So I do think that the impact gets a little greater as we look into next year. So I would expect further price increases from both retailers.